Hey everyone, Slayer here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the novelization for Return of the Jedi. Now, this was my first time reading it. Um, this book came out 43 years ago. Uh, Disney just did a reprint of the original trilogy last year, and they all have new introductions uh, by the authors. So there's James Caan giving a new introduction into the book. It was really, nice to see that they let these authors do these introductions, just talking about a little bit of their work process into the book. Real brief, but it was just nice. Um, so yeah, the author of this novelization is James Caan, handpicked by George Lucas because James Caan had, I guess, already had an established career of doing novelizations for films, so George was really fond of that. So he recruited him to adapt his final film in the original trilogy. Um, and I like that opening crawls are on the back. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, Luke Skywalker has returned to his home planet of Tatooine in an attempt to rescue his friend Han Solo from the clutches of the vile gangster Jabba the Hutt. Little does Luke know that the Galactic Empire has secretly begun construction on a new armored space station, even more powerful than the first dreaded Death Star. When completed, the ultimate weapon will spell certain doom for the small band of rebels smuggling to restore freedom to the galaxy. I mean, I know that was George right there probably, but it's a great, just it puts you in perspective of what's about to happen and what's gone on so far, and I love that opening text. So the only Star Wars film novelizations I've read before this are Rogue One, Solo Star Wars Story, The Rise of Skywalker, and Revenge of the Sith. So those are the 4 novelizations I've read. Out of those 4, Revenge of the Sith, obviously top tier, the best, hands down. But out of the Disney ones, I would say it's either going to be Solo or Rise of Skywalker. I thought those novelizations and what those authors brought into the story were so good, and left such an impact on me. And there's parts in Solo and that novel that aren't in the film, but they were in the novelization, and I could just still picture them today, which I love. But we're here to talk about this amazing book, okay? So, reading it, honestly, it could be part of the Disney canon still. Like, this book, there's parts that I was, shocked and kept gasping. I kept, wait, hold up, what's going on? It's like this book almost was made just with certain references that feel like it could be like it's a part of the canon. I mean, there's 2 small things that, well, not small, but they're kind of big, but could be easily changed to adapt this novelization back into the canon verse. The two are, in this novel, well, I'll kind of talk about the story because we'll go through the story and then I'll talk about all those things, because it's not a long story at all. I finished this in a day, actually, which was surprising. I don't ever finish books that quick, but I was able to finish this in a day. So, they start off, the novelization is almost a direct adaptation of the film with just minor little tweaks in dialogue or new scenes. So, they start off Jabba's palace trying to save Han. I mean, that whole part, really nothing new. It's just the same. Except towards the end, after they blow up Jabba's ship and save Han, You know, we have that deleted scene in the sandstorm, which is adapted in the book, but it really emphasizes, you know, how appreciative Han was that they rescued him and they took all this time to get back to him. And I just thought, like, it was nice to see that of Han. I feel like we don't ever see that, and to really see how Han was like just really, you know, grateful and just humble and just very like, we don't ever see that side of him, so that was nice. um you know, and he actually just talks about what it was like to be in the carbonite. And I always thought it was like a sleep paralysis type situation, but he says like you're just awake the whole time. You're awake. Like, oh my gosh, that must have been terrible. Oh, I can only imagine. Like, I wonder, like, like if you're hungry, like, how does that work? Like, if you're hungry, if you have to just rest your mind carbonite, like, I wonder how that works. I hope someone is able to, in a dictionary or something in the future, or an encyclopedia, they can talk about how the carbonite works. I think that'd be cool. But that's getting off topic. So basically, yeah, Han, you know, is grateful, talks about his carbonite experience. They took off in two separate directions. Then Luke gets to Yoda. That part's almost the same, except, you know, Luke goes to talk to Ben, and that scene's a little bit altered. Like, it's an extended scene. It's so cool. I don't know if there's still, I don't know if there's footage of it or not, but I hope there is, because, you know, after Luke's like, okay, well, why don't you tell me my dad, you know, was Vader? He's like, well, you know, from a certain point of view, Vader killed your father because the man I knew is no longer your dad, you know, type situation. And then he's like, and you know, your mom, he's like, well, then he's like, okay, well, I'm not gonna find my dad. And he's like, well, then Luke's like, what about the other? And then Ben is like, well, the other's your sister. And he's like, I have no sister. And he's like, well, you know, the Emperor and Darth Vader knew if your mom had a kid, the Emperor would use them for the dark side. So he's like, you know, I took you to my brother Owen. And that was like, oh wow, I didn't know George originally intended for Owen to be the brother of Obi-Wan, so that was a little interesting. And then they actually talk about Obi-Wan. Ben is like, you know, your mother sent your sister to the Senator Organa on Alderaan, who was part of a royal family, and and she became princess through lineage. And then I just really thought that was interesting how like George had intended Padme to drop Leia off on Alderaan. So I wonder what maybe his alternative death or alternative death would have been for Padme had she lived past, you know, Anakin killing her in Revenge of the Sith. Another great scene, you know, after that, then we get the Rebel command ship and Mon Mothma, brief description of, you know, her past life in this book really felt like part of Andor, Rogue One. Like, I just thought it was so good. Like, it was really well written, you know. And then once the rebels get to, you know, Endor, then that whole scene is basically the same. Then once the rebels get to the Death Star 2, I mean, reading it felt like I was rewatching Rogue One with the space battles. It was so amazing, you guys. Like, James Caan, like, scenes that weren't even in the film, but the way he's describing them, like extended battle scenes in this book in space or for the Death Star, it was really well written. And I usually don't like reading space battles because it's just, I don't know, I just don't really find them interesting, to be honest. But it was just like reading it felt like I was watching the film again, just hearing the pilots like, Red Vader calling in, Blue 5, are you okay? Red 4 just blew up. Like, I don't know, it was just like, I felt like a kid watching Rogue One again, and it was so well written. Um, you know, it's just cool getting a little bit more about the Ewoks back on Endor. We get to learn a little bit more about their names and kind of about like their purposes. Um, and reading this, doing this review, the actor who plays Tebow, the doctor of the Ewoks, just passed away too. So, you know, I just want to give a shout out to him. May he rest in peace. But yeah, I just thought it was coincidental his passing and me having just read this book and learning about his character having been the doctor of the Ewok tribe. So, you know, rest in peace to him. Next, you know, we get a little bit of a backstory with the Emperor, and that itself felt so in line with the canon, Revenge of the Sith, all of it, like well written. You know, I know James Caan has a book out that just came out recently that talks about, you know, his process in making the Return of the Jedi novelization. So I really want to read that because this book was so good. You know, I'm trying to think what else I'm missing. Well, basically, yeah. So once, you know, they have the space battle going on, the rebels are on Endor. Luke's on, you know, meets Vader, goes to. Oh, but before that, after the Emperor's like, you know, wait on the command ship for my orders, you know, and then he comes back again that second time to see the Emperor. Well, before that, you know, Vader, the novelization says Vader has to go through this like room full of the Emperor's courtiers, all dressed in like makeup and high fashion clothing. And I just thought like, okay, that like giving a little bit Last Jedi vibes. I would have maybe liked to say seeing like some of Emperor Palpatine's like the riches in the galaxy, maybe trying to appease to the Emperor all right there, and would have been maybe nice to see all those rich people. Nothing against rich people, but you know, just I think like all those elite class, uh, you know, those who are working behind the scenes to help influence the shape of things, like that type of people group. Uh, you know, I think would have also been impactful to the film. So, you know, he has to go through the courtiers, and then he has to go through you know, in the deleted scene, it's actually Moff Gerard that has to confront Vader, but in the novelization, it just says an officer. It's not the Moff. So basically, he's like, you know, you can't get through, and then the royal guards, you know, about to like fight Vader, and he starts choking the officer into the ground, basically, and then he's like, you know, I'll wait his convenience. And then, yeah, I just thought that was like a really cool scene. Like, I really wish we would have saw that whole extended scene in the movie. I just thought, you know, a little bit of elegance popping up and a little bit more of like emphasis of who those two guys were, you know, his aides, his courtiers, the book calls them. You know, it would have been nice to see more of them because their outfits were actually kind of nice too, I will say. So then once, you know, Luke confronts the Emperor with Vader, that part's almost the same. It's all basically the same all right there. But it was just interesting to see that, like, in the novelization, I guess maybe because it's kind of dark in the film, I don't think I recall it being in the film, but, like, Luke throws his lightsaber to Vader and he's like, you know, I'm not going to fight your father. And then Vader uses the Force to get his lightsaber and puts it on his belt. And then, you know, Luke's thinking about, like, Vader's like, you know, you're not going to win, join me. And then, like, Luke's thinking about his friends, and then Leia, like, and what he just found out about her being his sister. And Vader can, like, read it in his mind. And that's why he's like, so you have a sister. And he's like, your thoughts betray you, because he can read into Luke's thoughts. And I just thought that reading that into the novel gave me a little bit more of an understanding of how Vader found that out, and I just like that clarity, you know. Um, so that was nice. Then Luke, then Vader's like, okay, well, I'll get her to join me then, and then that's the breaking point for Luke. Like, is Leia. Like, no one's gonna hurt Leia. So then he fights Vader, takes him down, and then in the novel, in the films, we see the lightning always being blue, but in the novel, he originally it's white. He's shooting white, like just not natural lightning, white. So I thought that was a really cool take. I would like to see that maybe in a future Star Wars film or story. Just that white lightning, a little bit of a different variant of lightning. I don't think that would be bad or hurt what's come before it. So yeah, that happened. And then as Vader's watching Blue get electrocuted, Luke then uses the Force to deflect the lightning, just like Yoda does in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And I thought that, but Luke does it real briefly. He does like for a couple seconds, and then Palpatine's so powerful, he overpowers Luke's ability to deflect the Force, and then like the lightning like consumes him, and then he gets electrocuted and is back down on the ground again. I thought that would have been so cool to see in Return of the Jedi, like how visually George would have done that. Like Luke have that like ball thing that Yoda has to deflect the lightning, or would it have been like, I don't know how they would have done officially. Maybe that's why they didn't do it, because they're like, well, who knows how to do that? But I thought that would have been so cool to see. But it's nice to know that that was in the book, and I'm gonna take that as canon that Luke did that. So Vader then gets the Emperor, throws him. That whole part's the same. Then Luke gets him down. The rebels got the shield down. Lando, and I just like it, like just a little bit more Lando too, and his thought process of going into the Falcon and getting the start blowing up. Luke gets Vader back onto the Imperial shuttle, and Vader's just like, I want to see you for the last time, and I'm already about to die. So he takes off the mask, and I just thought like this book had a little bit more emphasis too, which was nice. It felt a little bit more emotional actually than the film. Luke's just looking down at Vader, and he's like, I'm sorry, and Luke just starts crying. Well, before Luke starts crying, Vader's just like, like I probably done so much. He's thinking about Leia and what he did to her, and he's disgusted with it. He's like, he thinks about it for a moment and then he stops thinking about it, because it's disturbing when he tortured her in A New Hope. But then he's just thinking about his life before he dies, and then all of a sudden like he feels like this wetness on his mouth, and he's like, well, it's not my sweat, but it's like, if anyone's worked hard or if they cried, they could tell the difference between what a sweat is if it gets caught in your mouth or a eardrop, and he realizes it's a salty one. It's from crying, and he looks up and he sees Luke crying. Like, and I just thought, oh, that was such an emotionally powerful thing to put into the book that James didn't have to, but he did, and I just thought that was so powerful. Vader realized that's all the pain and the suffering that I've put Luke and Leia through, and everything they've had to endure. Like, that's what he's thinking to himself, as he's felt that a teardrop from Luke. Like, it's a realization for him at that point now of everything he's done, and I just thought that was just so well written. So then he dies. Luke and him get off. The Star blows up. Luke burns him. Rebels are all celebrating back on Endor, and I just thought it was interesting. I wish it was a little bit more of an emphasis, but it wasn't. Real brief. They're all celebrating whatever, and then Luke just turns for a second, and it's just like, he sees shadows of just like Obi-Wan, Yoda, and it goes, maybe his father. And then that's it. And then it ends. And I was just like, oh, okay. I thought maybe there would have been, I don't know, a conversation and a little bit of a dialogue between the characters, Obi, Anakin, and Yoda. But that's alright. I'm not mad at it. But I was just a little taken aback. It was just, that's just one line sentence of Luke turning his head, seeing three ghosts of his past, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and maybe his father. That's all it says. So, and then yeah, it ends. So besides that, I would give it a 9 out of 10. It was a really good book. I really love this novel. Revenge of the Sith is still my favorite, but this is now my second favorite. This was a very well written novel. I recommend anyone to read it, especially if you want to know a little bit more Luke's thought processes, Leia's thought process, Han's, Lando's, the Emperor, Mon Mothma, Akbar, basically every them, all of them. Even Bail Organa has a little bit of a back history up on this. So I definitely recommend this book. Revenge. I was about to say Revenge of the Jedi, Return of the Jedi, by James Caan. So right now, the next book I'm reading is, I'm not sure yet, so stay tuned. As always, may the Force be with you.